In this session, we'll talk a little bit more tactically about getting to VCF9, and we'll share some capabilities for lifecycle management in VCF9 as well. Grab my clicker. First, let's spend a second to review the disclaimer about the content we're about to share for today. Please take a second to review them. All right. So my name is Chester, and together with Suzy, we are from the VCF product management team responsible for lifecycle management. And today we'll talk about getting to VCF9 and share some capabilities for VCF9 lifecycle management. But before we do that, let's spend a few minutes to talk about the topology for VCF9. So a VCF fleet is an environment that is managed by a single instance of VCF operations. A VCF fleet can be in a single site, it can be in multiple sites, or it can be a single region or in a multiple region. So there's a lot of flexibility in terms of how to architect VCF. In a VCF fleet, there will be multiple VCF instances, and this is where your workloads would run. And in a VCF instance, there is a management domain. This is where the management workloads will be running. So you see SDDC Manager, VCF Network Manager, vCenter, for example. And underneath, there are usually many workload domains, and this is where your applications would run. To talk a little bit more specifically about getting to VCF9, generally, we have three main strategies of getting to VCF9 depending on your scenario. The first scenario is if you have an existing non-VCF deployment, a vSphere-based deployment. And with that, you can use VCF installer and VCF operations to import these existing components into VCF9. And this strategy would continue to use your existing hardware. We're not changing any of your workloads. You don't necessarily have to upgrade your vCenter or ESX to version 9 first before upgrade, even though you have the options to. So it is flexible and is an easy way to get your existing environments under VCF 9 management and get the benefits of the enhanced management capabilities in VCF 9. The second strategy is if you have already adopted VCF 5. In that scenario, you can do an in-place upgrade of VCF 5 components into VCF 9 in a specific sequence, and we'll talk through more details in that. And again, the goal here is to ensure that your existing workloads, existing hardware can be reused, and there's minimal disruption to the day-to-day. Lastly, if you're looking to deploy a new VCF environment with new workloads or doing a hardware refresh, in that case, you would use our VCF installer, go through the guided wizard experience to deploy new instances of VCF, and as needed, migrate legacy workloads from potentially an older hardware or non-vSphere environments to this new VCF instance. This third scenario we'll cover in more details in tomorrow's session at 10:15 for choosing your path to VCF. Okay. So for VCF installer, this is a new capability, a new appliance introduced in VCF 9. The goal is to combine multiple tools into a single installer to provide a unified installation experience for all VCF components. Using the VCF installer, we can reduce risk by using validated topologies, as well as we have automated certain complex workflows that used to require multiple tools and manual processes. And furthermore, in the installer, it has built-in configurations and customization where it's suited to your specific needs. So for example, if you have sites that are online versus air-gapped, we have capabilities to support downloading binaries to those locations. If you're looking to deploy new VCF components or import existing ones, as I mentioned earlier, there's an option for that as well. And there are availability models available you can choose from. You can choose a single node, simple deployment, or a high availability node. Lastly, you can save these configurations into JSON and reuse it for future deployments. And that way, you can achieve a faster, more reliable, and more repeatable VCF deployment using VCF installer. Let's go into a more specific example. So today I have a vSphere 8 deployment, update 3, and an NSX Manager 4.2 deployment together with ARIA operations. So how do I get this set up, this existing environment, into VCF 9? The first step would be to upgrade VCF operations to 9.0, because this is where a lot of the process will be driven. Next, we'll deploy the VCF installer and follow the wizard to converge these components into the new VCF instance that you're creating. And now the existing components become part of the management domain of the new VCF 9 instance. And here, now you form the first VCF instance, and you're with the management domain. And as a next step, you can start adding workloads to it. Right. The benefit of this approach is that you don't necessarily have to upgrade your vCenter or ESX to 9.0 first prior to adopting VCF 9. And you can upgrade these components using VCF operations over time at your schedule. A slightly different variation of a similar scenario is, let's say, for an environment that's ready to be upgraded to vSphere 9, you can first upgrade these components to VCF 9 and then follow a similar process to import and converge them into the VCF instance that's newly created. Regarding networking, there's an option to import the existing VCF networking instance, or you can create a single node or 3-node cluster. And we'll show you a little bit of that in a demo video. Okay, so here I have already connected to the online Broadcom depot to download the necessary binaries. And here we'll follow the wizard to start the process of deploying a new VCF fleet. In this first step, we would choose to import the existing components as we were discussing a little bit earlier. So you can choose to import VCF operations, vCenter, as well as NSX Manager if that is connected to your vCenter. Here you provide some general information about the new VCF instance you're about to deploy. And here I want to highlight that you can choose the deployment model of a single node or a 3-node high availability configuration. And this is applied to all of the components within VCF. Here we would connect to the VCF operations instance that we wanted to import and bring in, and then provide some configuration information about the fleet management appliance that will be deployed, as well as the collector appliances that will be deployed. All right. Coming up next is VCF automation. It is optional to deploy VCF automation as part of this process, and you also have an option to connect to an existing instance of VCF automation if this is a component that you're currently using. In this example, we'll deploy a new instance of VCF automation. And next, So we mentioned we want to bring in the existing vCenter. We'll provide the necessary credentials, connect to the vCenter, and kick off the process. And on the networking side, previously we've already chosen to deploy a single node model. So here we are choosing the appliance size, as well as providing any additional information and configurations for the networking deployment. And then we'll do a quick review of these configurations. Again, in this area, you can save the configuration to a JSON for future use. We'll then perform a number of validations to ensure that the components that are being imported are compatible. You can view any warnings and errors that are reported, as well as remediate any problems before you're going to recheck the validation and before proceeding with the deployment. You can monitor the deployment process within the VCF installer, and after the deployment is successful, you can go to the VCF Operations console to view your deployment. As you can see now in the VCF Operations console, we have one VCF instance deployed, which has one management domain and the one vCenter that was imported as part of this process. Okay, so now that we have the management domain for this VCF instance deployed, let's add more workload domains. And using VCF operations, you also have the option to create new workload domains, but you also have the option to import existing components into the new management domain. So using VCF operations, you would perform the import. And also, similarly, there's an option to reuse the existing NSX instance, or you can create a new one with options for single node or high availability. And let's go to another demo that continues from where we left off. So this is in VCF Operations console. And as you can see, there's one management domain that we've previously deployed and one vCenter. So from the VCF Operations console, you would then kick off the process of importing a vCenter into a workload domain. You'll provide some information to connect to the vCenter. And again, here there is an option to connect to an NSX instance. In this example, this vCenter is not connected to NSX, so I have disabled this option here. Similar to what we saw in the VCF installer, we'll perform a number of pre-checks, and this is where you can view and remediate any warnings and errors that might be critical or blocking to the deployment. And as mentioned in this example, we're creating a new NSX Manager instance, but you can also have the option of importing an existing one and options to deploy a single node versus a management cluster. We'll rerun the validations again to ensure that everything is ready to go before the actual import of the vCenter and creation of the management domain. You can monitor this process in the task view of VCF operations, and when it is completed, you'll be able to view that in the inventory. And as you can see now, in addition to the management domain that was deployed, now we have a workload domain deployed with the vCenter imported. Okay, so that kind of concludes our first strategy of importing existing components to VCF 9. And to continue forward, let's move on to the second strategy, where if you have existing VCF 5 deployed, how would I upgrade that to VCF 9? So the strategy is that you can do an in-place upgrade of each of these components to version 9, and that will constitute a VCF 9 environment. The advantage of this approach is that it's non-disruptive, and there's no migration required, and you can reuse and continue to use the same hardware, provided that they're compatible. The first step is if you have the ARIA suite deployed, you need to upgrade that to version 8.18 patch 2. This is important because we will be using this the lifecycle to upgrade VCF operations to version 9, as well as deploy the new fleet management appliance. If you have ARIA automation, you're currently using ARIA automation, you can import that into VCF operations and then perform the upgrade to version 9. So this takes care of what used to be in the ARIA suite, and now all of these components are in version 9. Next up is SDDC Manager. You can continue to use the SDDC Manager interface to upgrade that to version 9. And then we'll go to the infrastructure side. And you need to first upgrade all of your clusters to use VLCM images if that has not already been done. The baselines have been deprecated a long time, and in VCF 9 is no longer supported. Provided that that's satisfied, you can then use VCF operations to upgrade the infrastructure components to version 9. And as you're upgrading the ESX to version 9, networking and vSAN is also upgraded. Okay. So that concludes the second strategy. And as I mentioned, the third strategy where you would deploy a greenfield deployment of VCF and potentially migrating legacy or existing workloads to there. We'll cover that in more details in tomorrow's session at 10:15 in the Choosing Your Path to VCF session. Let's switch gears a little bit to talk about the lifecycle management capabilities in 9.0. VCF operations is now the central and unified console to perform lifecycle management for all VCF components. You can upgrade and patch all components from VCF operations, and capabilities and features that were previously accessed in SDDC Manager are now all accessible from VCF operations. We also have improved capabilities around managing our downloads, where it has built-in support for online instances, as well as offline and air-gapped instances. Let's take a look a little bit detail on the upgrade and patch experience. In VCF operations, we provide a guided user experience to upgrade or patch all VCF components. And in this particular screen, I'm trying to patch the ESX host to the latest version patch. And again, continuing while staying in the VCF operations, you can import VLCM images into VCF operations and select the clusters and apply the images for this patching process. You can monitor the patching process within the console and, of course, see the results. In terms of download, as mentioned, we now have more built-in support for different types of connectivity, where, of course, if the VCF 9 instance is online, you can connect directly to the Broadcom depot after obtaining a download token from our support portal. So this is for our licensing and management side. If you have an offline instance, you would first deploy the VCF download tool in a server that has access to the internet and download, after obtaining the token, for the binaries that you need into the depot, into the VCF download tool before uploading that to the VCF 9 offline site. So with these capabilities, now you have a much more structured way of getting the binaries to an offline site, which I'm sure is common for many of you. If you have multiple locations or multiple VCF instances that are offline, Additionally, you can deploy an internal web server and use VCF download tool to mirror the online depot locally. And that way you can use a single internal web server as the source for downloading for your multiple VCF instances. Okay. On the networking side, this we have shown a little bit earlier in the demo as well, where we now support the option to deploy a single node VCF networking manager when a new instance is created. So that provides much better flexibility for the initial deployment of VCF, where you can start with a smaller footprint and grow and change to an HA configuration as needed. Furthermore, in terms of networking lifecycle, we have enhanced and make sure that the sequence of upgrading the networking components is aligned with the vSphere component, where the management plane is upgraded before the data plane. This minimizes the downtime where we only need 2 maintenance windows, one for the management plane and one for the data plane, to upgrade the networking components. And again, this is aligned with the rest of the VCF stack. Another improvement around networking is that the VCF network VIPs is now embedded within the ESX-based OS image. What this does is that when you're updating ESX, it would also pick up the latest VIPs such that you can update these components in one go. This also enables live patching of networking components. Live patching, it uses the fast suspend resume technology to remediate compatible VMs such that the VMs can stay running without the need to evacuate during patching. So this capability was introduced in a previous version, and in 9.0, we are extending that to support additional object types such as VM kernel, user space, and as mentioned, VCF networking components. And lastly, as also mentioned a little bit earlier, the VLCM images are required for using version 9. So you will need to, if you have any current deployments that use the baselines, you will need to update that prior to upgrading to version 9. Okay. All that. And a plug to a couple of additional resources and sessions. We have a Meet the Expert Roundtable at 2:30 today in Ballroom G, Table 1, as well as the next session, Choosing Your Path to VCF, which is tomorrow morning in Ballroom F, where, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, we'll talk more about the use case of if you're deploying in the greenfield or migrating legacy workloads or non-vSphere-based workloads into a VCF environment, using XCX, and what would we do? So if you're interested, please come by and join us in these additional sessions. Right? All right. Thank you.
So we wanted to do something different. So the amount of content we wanted to share with you all was very specific and focused so that we can have the rest of the 30 minutes to have an open discussion. Okay, we just wanted to do something slightly different than just us repeating the same thing. So I wanted to double click on some of the aspects you just learned today. How many of you here are still vSphere only customers? Almost all of you. Okay, so let's actually have a good discussion on what it would take for you all to move to VCF. Hopefully you all have been having a good explore so far. You've attended the keynote. You see the areas of investment we have going. We are going to double down on all of these features that we are introducing in 9. Okay, so for the first and foremost aspect, since most of you are vSphere only customers, how many of you understood the convergence, the import aspects that Chester just shared? And feel free, confident to share your thoughts. Okay, some of you did, but most of you did not, is what I'm going to take away. Okay, let's talk about that, right? The idea there is we understand you have specific configurations on your vSphere environments. Many of you are looking to upgrading to 8.0 U3 at the moment. So grasping and internalizing what 9.0 is may be a lot for you, but the idea of the convergence is basically this. Take your time to get to vSphere 8.0. And you can keep your configurations as is, especially your networking configurations. This is a topic that comes up quite consistently in one-on-one conversations with you. So how many ever configurations you have, you can retain them. And basically the idea of convergence is this. You take your vCenter clusters, networking constructs you have on them, and we just wrap the VCF constructs around it. So what we offer you is select the vCenter that you want to be the main management vCenter. Once you select it, we will do the automatic VCF construct around it. Then we proceed to say that the rest of your vCenters that you select will just make the constructs of the workload domains in VCF. Why are we doing this? So that it does not look like you're going to have to do a migration. We don't want you to do that. You leave your clusters as is. Your unit of management is vCenter today. Therefore, we will honor that. You will continue to keep vCenters as your unit of management. All your decision-making process is through that, so you can keep that. And as you get familiar with VCF constructs, you will get to understand the concept of a management domain, why you have workload domains, what this level of orchestrating day-end operations on these workload domains mean. So that is the main idea behind convergence and import. Now, hopefully you are just at least a 10% more understanding of what it is, but I would like you to ask questions on this. Do you have any additional questions on what are the topologies we can convert, we can hit? Yeah, question. Mm-hmm.
Nothing is mentioned about federation.
Okay.
How is that handled?
Yeah, the question is, nothing was mentioned about federation. Very good question, and it does keep coming year after year. So we do support NSX federation. However, as part of this import, we don't really import global manager, which is what makes it a federated NSX, simply because today, even configuring global manager, even life cycling global manager is such a manual operation, and it doesn't really mean anything for us to import it. So what we decided was all the local managers will be imported into VCF, but we do expect you to configure the global manager once these are imported. No, just like Chester was saying, if your environment is 8.0 and the corresponding NSX versions, you can leave them as is in the local managers, place the VCF constructs around it, and then you can upgrade them to 9.0 at whenever you can. Yeah, next question. Very good question. VxRail. Let's actually touch base on that. Okay, how many of you are VxRail customers? Quite a lot. Okay, all right. So I know that we have been quiet about it, but since my team is also running that partnership with Dell, here is what we are going to do. We are going to phase the rollout of VxRail on 9.0 in a couple of manners. In the next few weeks, you will see an announcement from Dell that announces support of greenfield deployment on 9.0. Meaning, if any of you want to set up a brand new cluster, brand new VCF environment on VxRail, you will be able to do so on 9.0. That is the first phase. Okay. Now, many of you may not, that doesn't probably excite you. But if you're looking for an upgrade path, you will hear about the upgrade program from a 5.x or a vSphere 8.x to 9.1 much later in the year from them. What you will hear is a set of instructions of how you're going to upgrade your VxRail from whatever version you have today to a 9.x based environment. So, I don't want to beat around the bush around this. There is no upgrade path to 9.0 yet, but you will have an upgrade path to a successive release of 9.0. What's happening in the interim is there is going to be a new VxRail manager that is being built for you all. And the outcome of that is the environment will look no different than a vSAN ready node. Okay, so we do have staged steps for addressing your VxRail needs. Actually, I'll stop here. Questions around that? I know there may be concerns on this rollout process. Yeah. Yeah. Dell is not, yeah. So just confirming what the gentleman asked. 2 phase rollouts. The first one is a greenfield deployment only. That is almost ready to go. You will hear from Dell as soon as Explorer ends. Dell is still working on the upgrade path, so hopefully we'll hear from them soon after. You know, I'm saying 9.1 just to give myself buffer. We'll see how it goes, how the testing goes. So far, so good. Maybe in between 9.0, 9.1. Don't quote me. You will hear from us. Okay, any other concerns, questions about VxRail? Okay, question? That is correct. Very good point there. Until we have the upgrade steps done, importing VxRail clusters would not be possible. However, to ease that process for you, we do allow mix and match of VxRail clusters and vSAN ready node clusters. We will announce that again soon after the Explorer, and between now and 9.1. We'll be able to support mix and match mixed clusters. That's what we are working on. So simply because we don't know the timeline of when you can upgrade, so we should at least allow you all to have a mix and match cluster. So that's what we are doing. Yeah. Okay. Anything else around VxRail? Okay. So questions on this convert import. Again, I'm very particular that you leave the session with at least a clear idea of what we are offering on that. No, yes, questions. Yes, so this would assume though that, okay, the question is, I have multiple vCenters, I just want to convert them into VCF and keep it in a single VCF instance cluster. So you can, but I just want you to make educated decisions on that. This would assume that you're going to have a consolidated deployment where both your workloads, management domain is all running in a single instance and cluster. If that's what you want to do, then we don't preclude you from doing that, but you must adhere to some of the scale limits that we have published in the Config Max guide. Typically, we have not seen customers putting thousands of hosts all in the same environment. They do separate it by fault domain. Fault domain is typically segregated by the hardware restrictions, typically through network segments or through storage. So there may be several such criteria perhaps you have in your environment. So that would be my response back to you. You can do it, but take into consideration the max limits. And latency also, that keeps coming up, by the way. And I do have some topics that I want to discuss. But did that answer your question? Okay. Yep. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Actually, let me just repeat that for the benefit of others. So the gentleman there was describing their environment. They seem to have an on and off, online, offline environment, and which dictates a lot of latency requirements in them. Actually, it's not quite a unique environment, by the way. We do see a lot of customers who are either always in a disconnected mode or have the use case of where they are on a lengthy periods of being offline and then coming back to an online environment. And this is why just I had a slide on those downloads. It's very critical for it may sound very rudimentary and probably the driest topic to talk about, downloads, but they do play a critical part for those environments. So in your case, yes, then I would highly recommend that you just place them all in a single management domain and clusters, workloads in them. But again, let's take a look at that scale limits. I do have the Meet the Expert roundtable. If you want to double click on the topology and architecture, we can do some napkin math over there. Yeah. Any other questions? Question? Yep. Very good question here. Yeah. Okay. The question is, I'll come right back to you. The question is, the fleet manager, is that the first instance where you deploy on becomes the fleet manager and then that continues to manage the others? So that's very good question and a good observation. Yes. By default, the very first instance that you deploy and where you deploy the VCF operations becomes the purview of the fleet. So this is also one other item that I would like you all to think about. Latency requirements is key for all of you. So keep in mind, you can have a single VCF operations, which is the fleet manager, part of the fleet management, and that can manage across availability zones, across regions, across sites, whatever your terminology is. However, do come back to us with your distance between sites, distance between regions and availability zone, and what your latency requirements from a VCF ops perspective should be. Then in those cases, if it is really, you can't really, if say you have something in Frankfurt and a data center in San Francisco and you're not able to get the latency requirements, then in those cases, we will request you to deploy, or rather it is probably a good practice to deploy another VCF ops and then federate the VCF ops with a single federated VCF ops, which becomes your fleet management. So hopefully that answered your question. Yeah.
Ransomware solution need a vCenter and a ESX to run the real resource that you call. Is there an option for that, or we have to?
So the question here is, you have Dell ransomware, you said? Yeah, they have Dell ransomware, and they just want to be able to back up restore by just using vCenter and ESX, and whether we have an option for that. So coincidentally, there is I should probably not be going on record for this, but we are looking to offer ESX-based backup restore, but again, I don't want to, this is just in the ideation and incubation phase at the moment, because we did hear many such requirements come from it. So hang on to that. Once we have made some progress, you will hear more from us. By the way, we have several CTABs, okay, that we do. Product managers like us, we travel quite a lot, and we come to to your area near your offices just to do one-on-one conversations with customers, simply because once a year, Explore is not cutting it, right? I do have nurtured relationships with many of you who keep coming to Explore year after year, but I would highly recommend take advantage of the CTAB. We are always on the road, meeting with customers, learning your topology, because vSphere topology is so varied. Each of you just slightly differ from the other person by just a very small change in the environment, and suddenly a new topology is there. Okay, all right. So that was that. We talked about converge import. Any more questions on that? Are people wanting to try that? Oh, okay, yes, sir. Well, if you read all through our documentation and whatnot, you will see that our latency requirements from a VCF ops to a site is 10 milliseconds. But that would be, again, that is not a generic answer, right? That is just the baseline based on your environment, how you have set up the fault domains, and how you have configured your active passive stretch cluster. All of that comes into picture. Okay?
So right now, you have cloud proxies, right?
Yeah. That's correct. Yeah. Yeah. Very good question. The question is, we used to have cloud proxy as part of VR Ops, and that had specific latency requirements, and has that gone away? So no, not at all. Actually, in 9.0, cloud proxy is now embedded within the VCF Ops, and so if you recall the demo, it asked whether you can have a simple deployment or a HA deployment. Okay, so if you had chosen HA deployment, it will automatically start with the 3-node VCF Ops cluster. Of the 3 nodes, one is a master node, one is a cloud proxy node, and the third is the LCM node in 9.0. And of course, you can add as many cloud proxy nodes as you want that can run to any number you need. The VCF Ops itself can go anywhere from 1 to 16 or 3 to 16. So it is very much existent. It is embedded as part of VCF Ops. Instead of asking you to download Cloud Proxy appliance, installing it, upgrading it, patching it, we have removed that, embedded it in VCF Ops, and we'll take care of deploying it, upgrading it, and patching it. That's the big change in 9.0 around Cloud Proxy. Okay? Any other questions? Okay. Yeah, so, yeah.
But in terms of the VCF stuff, Lifecycle manager, the way we do it today, we also implement with scalability manager to do Does that also fall in the scape of the upgrade without downtime? Or find that very hard?
For the live patching, you mean? Or sorry, repeat your question. Live patching, this. Okay, the question, what is the scope of the live patching? Can it do NIC firmware upgrade? So the short answer is no. However, see, the live patching is tricky, right? And I feel like customers think we are just overplaying it. So I want to be very clear on what live patching does. Across ESX, vCenter, NSX, okay? The live patching is specific to certain objects within those modules that can be live patched, meaning if you have kernel objects, it does require a reboot, right? Live patching, that is impossible to do. However, there are user objects that can be live patched, and if there is a patching required on those objects, we give you the ability to patch them without taking a downtime. That's what live patch does. Now, of course, over a period of time, we have figured out how to expand the coverage of live patch even to some of the kernel objects. At the CTAB, I actually wanted to understand the thought process behind patching at your environments, and it looks like a little bit more shelf time is needed for live patch for you all to get comfortable and trust us to patch something without taking a maintenance window. We get that. But we will continue to keep building on top of the live patch, and I do expect this time next year at Explore, I'll see a lot more of you embracing live patches. Question? Secure boot. Oh gosh, I was kind of hoping to not get that question. Yeah, we have been talking about that for a while. It is not there in 9.0, a matter of missing timelines, milestones for delivery of that. But we do have secure boot scheduled for the next version of 9.x. But we do support UEFI boot, so that is there in 9.0. But with secure boot, we'll hopefully close out that topic once and for all. Okay? What else? We talked about converge, import, VCF ops, and what's changing in 9.0 and the LCM node for that. We talked about live patching. Everybody understood the singleton NSX before I let you go. So NSX, how many of you have, or rather, how many of you don't have NSX? I would like to. That's a lot. Okay. See, this is a topic of a lot of passion I always see about NSX. See, the singleton NSX was introduced for ease of use, okay? You would have a single node to worry about, single node to upgrade and patch, and even that, we will take care of it in VCF world through our orchestration layer. So this should allow you to become a little bit more open to understanding what our networking constructs are. Singleton NSX, since we have been talking about this at this Explore, this is the 4th day of Explore for me, and it's being well received. So I would say, take a deeper look at that, see what it means, and then connect it with the VPC that we are introducing. That is also being well received, I would say, at the Explore by customers. It paves the way for VCF automation. If many of you here have VRA, VCD, then I would say take a look at singleton NSX, learn a little bit about VCP as well, and then the VCFA. Okay. Hopefully this was a useful session for you all. Thank you very much for attending. Have a great rest of the day.